On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. We are the official podcast of the Lot 1 tailgate party, which is at Lambeau Field every home game. This is episode 86, created October 8th, 2024. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minnesota and Neil on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen. For this sweet victory against the Rams in California, tonight I'm drinking Urban South Blue Light Pastry Stout Hot Fudge Brownie Sundae.
And hands were a central component to this game. So I am having the Tired Hands Brewery Hop Hands, which is probably better than Dontavian Wicks Hands.
And I certainly don't think about it as much as you guys do. I bought some ginger ale, so I'm having Jameson and ginger ale. All right, you can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC Podcast Green Bay Chat. And just the audio is available on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify by searching for Green Bay Chat. And please follow us on any of those social media platforms. What are we talking about this week? It is the Packers' Week 5 victory in Los Angeles. We'll take a look around the league through 5 weeks of play. Hey, we've got week 6 in Green Bay to get ready for against the Arizona Cardinals, and that means more tailgating is on the way. But before that, Neil, we can mention that we did see each other in Milwaukee on Wednesday. Neil is wearing his Mets shirt because we were at the Mets Brewers game at American Family Field, a game that through 6 innings had, 6 hits and no runs. The 7th inning went to the Brewers with 2 runs, a game in which Brewers fans expected to win when their all-world closer Devin Williams came into the game. And if anybody's ever fucked some chickens, Neil, it was Devin Williams in the 9th inning of that game.
That was a fun day at American Family Field.
Well, fun day for you. I mean, that's a relative term.
To be fair, you were ecstatic in the 7th inning when you had back-to-back home runs. And, you kept saying Pete Alonso's going to hit a double play to end the Mets season. And, well, there was a double play to end the season, but it was turned by the Mets. So
came a little bit too late.
Ouch.
Hey, at least we're not the Twins, right, Jeff?
Fair point, John. Fair point.
All right. With that said, we'll take a look at football now. The Green Bay Packers went to Los Angeles. Again, big thanks to our friend Cecilia. She was out there in Los Angeles, and she kind of did some nice repping for us this week, too. We linked her into all of our posts this week. She got us some new followers. A lot of her friends checked out our podcast last week. So thanks to all the new followers. Thanks for joining us on the podcast here. Again, thanks to Cecilia for her help. And again, looked like she had a great time. Packer fans had not just a great time in Los Angeles, but a great showing on TV. There was a lot of green in that stadium. And when you looked at social media, yes, Green Bay Packers fans traveled well to Los Angeles.
As much as anything, you could hear the Packers fans, right? When the Packers needed stops in that fourth quarter, it sounded like the game was in Lambeau Field. That was a spectacular showing by the Packers fans.
And another great road showing, right? We had Tennessee, and they show up in Los Angeles as well. What an awesome, awesome showing.
I would say we showed up pretty well in Brazil, too. So that's not bad for 3 road games, right? So, yeah, the Packers do travel well. And the good news is they're going to be home here. Now we get 2 home games in a row, the Houston Texans next week, but this week it is the Arizona Cardinals. We'll talk about that in a bit. But let's take a look more at the game against the Los Angeles Rams. As always, the most important statistic of the game, Green Bay Packers come away with a victory, 24-19, the final score. Green Bay now 3-2 on the season, but for at least a lot of the early parts of the game, it did not look like it was going to be an easy win to walk away with. Some foibles along the way, but some good numbers as well.
I mean, it wasn't an easy game because the Rams could have won it on their final drive. And thankfully, our defense stepped up. But it was a game that was very fragmented. It felt a lot like the last game where we had opportunities on offense and we succeeded sometimes, didn't other times. We had opportunities on defense where we made stops, but we also allowed a lot of really big plays. And they are clearly still finding themselves both on offense and on defense.
There were some improvements, penalties. I mean, there were some kind of crappy, untimely penalties, but overall, penalties were down, which is encouraging, I guess.
And the assets, Jeff, looked a little bit better. Braden Arvison doesn't miss a field goal. Daniel Whelan, a little bit off on his punts.
Yeah, short.
Not terrible, but not the great punts that we've seen from Daniel Whelan.
No, certainly not over the last couple of weeks, as he was arguably one of the best players on special teams or the ass hats. But yeah, he had an off day. But fortunately, Narveson did not hit his field goal and all of his extra points. So I guess we'll take that.
And
Exactly.
the Rams missed an extra point as well. So, and that certainly played into how the game played out. But I would also say this was a game where the Packers overcame adversity. On offense, we didn't have Watson and we didn't have Dobbs. And then on defense, we were missing Jair. We were missing Wyatt. We were missing Rashawn Gary. We're missing three of our best players on defense and two of our best players on offense.
Neil, Mr. Gary did play. But he
It didn't seem like it, right?
Well, he didn't have a very good showing. And again, his quarterback pressures is actually getting sacks and making a difference in the game, just not seeing it. So yeah, you could say that he didn't play.
I mean, it was his third game this year in which he had zero pressures on the quarterback. Thankfully, our other defensive players did make plays, and we had 3 sacks in that game, and every single one of those sacks was an absolutely huge play in the game. This wasn't just some sort of crap sack. It was every time. It was stopping a drive. It was consequential for every one of those 3 sacks.
And an improvement over last week as well. The defensive line and just the defense in general had more quarterback hits, at least as well. So we knew that Matthew Stafford is not a more mobile quarterback. And so we did see more quarterback hits, but you're right. Those sacks, that had to happen. We had to have those, and they won the game probably for us, right?
Well, I think there were a lot of things. When you only win by 5 points, you need sort of everything to go right. But to your point, Jeff, 10 quarterback hits for the Packers to only 3 quarterback hits for the Detroit Lions or Los Angeles Rams or whatever we're going to call them, Stafford's team. And that was a big story as far as the game is concerned. Our pass rush absolutely made key plays in the game.
Well, and it was kind of a surprise and who was making the difference, wasn't it?
1.5 sacks by KGB. That certainly was not what you expected. Tackle for loss for Nixon. But Cooper, I think that one of the people who was really a star of that game was Edgerrin Cooper, and he had a sack, a tackle for loss. He played 30 plays in that game, and he seemed to be flying every single where he was on the field.
In addition to that, in the defensive backfield, we saw a little bit of shifting there with Jair out, right? Keyshawn Nixon goes out to that outside corner spot, and it's actually Javon Bullard who comes from the safety, goes up into the slot position. And it was a day that Evan Williams shined out there in the defensive backfield as in the safety position. So now do we have a safety controversy in Green Bay between Evan Williams and Javon Bullard, who's going to be number 2 out there with Xavier McKinney? Knowing that we have this depth at safety that we just haven't had in years is incredible. And not just playing in that kind of that center field safety position, but Evan Williams came up and made some nice hits, made some nice tackles. He is in on a lot of plays, and he is good in coverage as well. He is picking up the tight ends in these motions where they're trying to motion off the coverage, trying to get some crossing plays. He had his head in the right spot, his feet in the right spot. He did everything. That's one of those things you got to watch afterwards and slow things down. And I know we don't do a lot of X's and O's on this show, but he did everything correctly.
And he did everything correctly playing all the time. He played 78 of 78 defensive snaps in that game, 10 tackles, 2 passes defended. And yeah, it was where he made those tackles that was so huge.
And this is exactly what we were hoping for when they were all drafted. We wanted this embarrassment of riches at the safety position, and it seems to be working towards that, exactly what we want, and a huge advantage on defense.
Right, and Carrington Valentine gets back on the field. Not a terrible game for him. Eric Stokes, same thing. We want to see a little bit more. But there's another guy who is on the practice squad who gets some playing time every once in a while, Robert Rochelle, who you're thinking, oh, maybe he'll get some opportunities out there. He is primarily a special teams player, but he injures his shoulder right away early in the game. So he misses out on that opportunity, which is unfortunate for him. It looks like he'll be working his way back to the practice squad for the Packers. But like you said, Jeff, yeah, an embarrassment of riches in that defensive backfield. So now if Jair's ready to come back and we now know what strengths we have in that backfield, and the next thing that we really need is that defensive line to step up. We know that everything starts up front, right? Now, if we can get more pressures on, get more hits on the quarterback on, how much better that defensive backfield is going to look.
Yeah, although the defensive backfield did overall control Matthew Stafford reasonably well. 45 passes for Stafford, only 260 yards, 5.8 yards per attempt. That's a reasonably good way to control an all-pro type quarterback. And if we're consistently holding their quarterbacks to relatively modest yards per attempt, we're in a pretty good situation.
And how many interceptions did he throw, Neil?
Well, just one, but it was kind of a critical interception now, wasn't it?
My favorite part about the media guide is being able to pencil in new records when they happen. So we've been very ecstatic about Xavier McKinney. So if you open up your hymnal to page 308 down in the lower left-hand corner, most consecutive games with an interception, the Packers' all-time record of 5 by Irv Comp has stood since 1943. You can now pencil in Xavier McKinney 2024 into that slot. The last time that it was done in 4 consecutive games before Xavier McKinney, Nick Collins in 2009. So that's some good company there. The other one I want to throw this out at you because we keep talking about Xavier McKinney on pace for 17 interceptions. The record for interceptions in a season for this team is 10. And that was done by the same Irv Comp in 1943. And he did that in 10 games, 10 interceptions in 10 games. Other than that, we've got a lot of players who had 9. Bobby Dillon having 3 seasons with 9 interceptions.
Wow.
But yeah, Charles Woodson in 2009 had 9 interceptions, but it took him 16 games to do that. So now Xavier McKinney with a 17-game season, a chance to really get his name on this Packer record book in the media guide. And he's been worth every single penny that they paid for him in the free agency market.
And he gets a fumble recovery on top of that.
Yes.
He's up to 6 turnover recoveries.
Exactly. And hopefully on his way to Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, he already has a great resume so far. And if you keep building on that, I think he's going to have excellent success.
He's had a great 5 weeks so far, and I know that teams are paying attention to it. There's a lot of conversation about how the Giants front office kicking themselves for probably letting him go. And even, Saquon Barkley's having a good year. I mean, the Giants are just beside themselves on the players that they have let go.
One of my concerns about the defense in this game was the inability for them to get off the field. So Matthew Stafford and company, they were 8 of 16 on third downs, 50%. If we could have gotten off the field, I think that there would have been a lot more success, and this game wouldn't have been as close as it was but they just kept these sustained drives, and the defense couldn't get the offense off the field.
Just looking at the Rams drives, they had a 3-and-out on their first drive that Jeff and I missed because of the Ravens-Bengals game going overtime. But after that, the Rams drives were 7, 13, 10, 6, 8, 8, 11, and 11 plays. Not a single drive that was under 6 plays, and 4 that were in double digits for their drives the rest of the game. That is certainly a concern. And one of the reasons why they were able to do that is not just Stafford, but their running game was very effective. Their running backs overall were 28 rushes for 134 yards, 4.8 yards per attempt for their running backs. So Stafford made big plays, and then they were able to balance it with the running and passing game to take advantage of whatever the Packers were giving them.
Well, speaking of big plays, how about the Packer offense and their big plays? Leading the league in explosive plays, but there was a couple in this game that were just incredible. Neil?
Let's just look at the screen here, right? Jaden Reed catching that ball in the middle of a pass interference with 3 guys around him and somehow dragging that in as far as leading us towards our first score. 53-yard reception for Jaden Reed. Absolutely spectacular focus by Reed on that play.
Yeah, no business catching that thing.
No.
I mean, that's absolutely incredible. Triple coverage, basically over his shoulder, and what a spectacular catch.
I feel like Jordan Love knew it was triple coverage too. Like he dropped back and everything's covered. I think he was hoping more for a pass interference penalty on this play than anything else. But the percentages, I think, of that pass being completed to Reed had to have been pretty low in that moment.
But this is one of those situations where there are really 4 possibilities, and 2 of them are excellent possibilities: a long catch or a pass interference. Yes, there's the possibility of an interception, but that's essentially a long punt given the distance on there. And an incompletion doesn't really hurt you that much in that situation. So I think Jordan Love was certainly thinking appropriately in terms of the risk reward balance on that play.
The other thing that pass and catch did, this was the second game in a row that the Packers have had a drive of 96 yards. Wow. So this was 53 of that 96, but it started out better, and that was the hope, that they get this huge pass play, they get on the board, they're ahead 7-0, and this first half is looking a lot better than it did last week.
Well, the thing about that drive is we seem to balance the run and pass very well. On most of that drive, it started out on first down with a pass to a wide receiver for 7 or 8 yards, and then a running play by Jacobs. So Heath 7, Jacobs 8, Reed 8, Jacobs 11, Reed 4, Jacobs 7. We had 3 first downs by Josh Jacobs on that drive that all were on relatively short second downs. We weren't putting ourselves in a position where we had second and long, third and long. And guess what? That's what you need for sustained drives. And oh, by the way, that was our Achilles heel in the entire game, was the inability to sustain drives. We did great on home run plays. We'll talk about the other big home run play. But in that game, the Packers had 1 1-play drive, 1 2-play drive, 4 3-play drives, and 1 4-play drive. That is, we had 7 drives that were 4 plays or fewer.
Yeah, the 3 and outs in the first half, that was not good, and that's what kept the Rams in the game, frankly.
Well, thankfully, that 2-play drive was one of our best drives of the game, specifically starting out with a 4-yard pass to Jacobs, but then the 66-yard pass and catch and run from Love to Kraft. And wow, what an incredible play by Tucker Kraft on that play.
Well, and the first of his 2 touchdowns. And that's really what turned this game around. I mean, after the turnover at a half, Rams get the ball, they turn it over, and you're right, 2 plays, and Tucker Kraft is quickly becoming a legend in Green Bay. And not only Green Bay, but in the league as well.
Jordan Love in that third quarter was 3 of 3 for 94 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. You're not going to have a better quarter of football than that.
Well, even since we kind of glossed over it, but the pick 6, a very terrible play early in the game. But Jeff, those numbers since the pick 6 is a career day for some quarterbacks as well.
The pick 6, John, was on Jordan Love's 761st pass attempt. Did it rattle him? I don't think so. Because after that, for the rest of the game, he went 10 of 15 for 152 yards, 2 very important touchdowns, and he didn't have an incompletion until the 4th quarter.
Yeah, he went 9 straight passes without an incompletion, right?
I mean, it was the resilience. I mean, that is what you learned about Jordan Love, and we've seen it before, but it's that he's not going to be bothered by anything. And specifically, we get the ball back after that pick 6, and we've got 2:02 left in the first half, and Jordan Love engineers a drive that takes us down into field goal range with some key passes to Melton, Heath, and Reed, leading to a situation where we're in field goal range, and yet he showed more resilience after that. We got down to their 29-yard line, and he was sacked, taking us essentially to the edge or out of field goal range, a 3rd and 26, and then made that key play to move us into field goal range, a pass to Wicks, and then Narveson kicks the field goal. So instead of it being 13-7 at halftime, it's 13-10. That was a critical drive in this game, both as far as showing what his moxie was, showing what this team was about, and showing the fight that we had going forward into the rest of the game.
You know, I want to say I'm not a big fan of how that stat is labeled as a sack, because it's a lateral. He's trying to throw it to Jaden Reed. Presumably they're setting something up. Reed misses it and the ball goes out of bounds. It is a fumble because it's a backwards pass. It's out of bounds. But to call that a sack is a misnomer in my book. But, let the NFL give the guys their stats. That's what they're all about, right?
But the big thing is that they were able to overcome it. As Neil said, the resiliency. And so the pick 6, the first one of his career, shake it off and move on.
Well, and like I said, it's Dontavian Wicks who makes that play as well. Again, another week where Wicks, 7 targets, only 2 catches. The fact that Jordan Love is not giving up on Dontavian Wicks is a testament to how these guys play together. It's like, hey, I know you can do this, Now, I do feel that maybe the first couple of passes from Love just, were totally off target, but to keep going to Wicks in these situations, again, a testament to the offense, to that camaraderie that they have.
The other thing, though, is that we were missing Romeo Dobbs, and Dobbs is that possession receiver. Right? If there was anything that we were missing in that game, when we talk about the absence of sustained drives, it's we needed that 5 to 10 yard possession pass, and we had no Romeo Dobbs, who is the best player we have for those possession passes, and we had no Luke Musgrave as well. There was certainly an absence of playmakers who are going to be focused on those short passes. And I still think that Matt LaFleur could have done a better job in his play calling to assure that we got those little chunks that moved us forward. And we did not have all of these failed drives in the game.
Let's go back and look at these receivers a little bit, what you had said, John. So clearly Love and just the Packers in general are giving Wicks a lot of targets. He's been targeted the most of all the Packer receivers, 29 times, yet he only has 10 receptions for 124 yards. Now you've got Reed, who, in my opinion, he's now our wide receiver one. 28 targets, 21 receptions for 414 yards. If you want to do the math, 19.7 yard average. Then you've got Kraft, who has the Swiss Army knife. He loves to block. And you know what? This was a breakout game with his 2 touchdowns, but he's catching the ball as well. On 22 targets, he's had 16 receptions, 218 yards, and that's a 13.6 yard average, which is very solid. And then to Neil's point with Dobbs, he threw 4 games, not 5, obviously, 20 targets, 12 receptions for 169 yards, but is still a healthy 14.1 average. I want to see Wicks succeed, and he's gotten so many targets, and between, I don't know if it's bad luck, just dropping, not attacking the ball, trying to get the ball. I don't know what it is, but the Packers are sure giving him lots of opportunities to work through this.
Well, one of the reasons why they're giving him opportunities is because he is doing all of the extra work. And when you look at that long pass to Tucker Kraft, Dontavian Wicks was downfield making key blocks that allowed Kraft to get essentially the last 30 yards of that play. We talked previously about how Christian Watson was clearly a great downfield blocker, and Wicks did exactly that dirty work in order to make that long play in the third quarter to Tucker Kraft.
After Kraft ran over the first DB or stiff arm the first DB.
All right, and you mentioned Kraft's yardage. More than half of that is yards after the catch. I believe it's like 157 yards after the catch as well. Also, taking a look at the game, there's 7 different receivers out there, which in conjunction with the numbers you put out there, Jeff, makes you wonder what really is going on with Romeo Dobbs. Yeah. We've got a lot of rumor. We don't know much other than they called it conduct detrimental to the team. Speculation that he's feeling left out of the passing game, but the numbers just don't support that. The ball is getting spread around. He's got a decent amount, but when you're dealing with 4 guys that all can play that top spot, you have to do something to really separate yourself. The cream has to rise to the top, and pouting about it isn't going to do that for you.
Well, we can hope that his response is the same as Jair's was last year to a 1-game suspension. And I think that's all I really want to say about Dobbs in that situation. But I do want to bring up one other thing that happened in the game that was really encouraging. It happened to be in the fourth quarter when we had a 3rd and 12, and Jordan Love scrambled for those 12 yards to get that first down. And what that told me more than anything else is that he is feeling confident in that knee. He's not worried about that MCL. He is ready to play at full speed. He is playing at full speed. At one level, that was among the most encouraging plays in the entire game. Even though it just sort of extended a drive that in the end didn't lead to anything, it showed where our quarterback is relative to where that injury was.
Neil, watching that run, I was both concerned, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? One, he had to get the first down. It was important. And it was, I think, the only 3rd down conversion we had that day as well. But more importantly, you're right, that he pulled the ball down. He was confident enough to run and going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, please get it. He got it. Relief. He gets back up. We move on.
And our running game, other than Jordan Love, also did well in most of the game, although that also came in spurts. Josh Jacobs in the first quarter, 5 rushes for 27 yards and a touchdown. Reed and Wilson for 8 yards rushing each. That looked really good. We had a situation in this game where it was a quarter by quarter. And in the Packers' second quarter, we only had 41 total yards. We had 5 rushing yards on 4 attempts in that second quarter. And in the third quarter, Jacobs had 3 rushes for 8 yards. So you get into the issues with Matt LaFleur figuring out how to balance the different elements of this offense. I don't think he has everything figured out yet as far as how to make all of these parts come together, because definitely the running game was not doing anything in the second and the third quarters. But yes, in that fourth quarter, in addition to the Love run, Jacobs 7 rushes for 33 yards. So that long sustained drive, that 8-minute and 9-second drive that we had that started from our own 7 in the fourth quarter that forestalled the Rams from being able to move the ball was absolutely critical. And yes, our running game was central to that.
But the fact that Josh Jacobs did finally score his first touchdown as a Packer took him to week 5. It seems like he scored a bunch of touchdowns, but the reality is he hasn't. But congratulations to Josh for getting that first rushing touchdown as a Packer.
The other thing Josh Jacobs had was a 21-yard reception. And I would say that's another case of where we're seeing the offense evolve or trying to figure itself out, because we actually only had 2 throws to running backs in that game, the one to Jacobs and then one to Wilson that ended up being a loss of 9 yards. So I think that figuring out how to use the running backs out of the backfield with the passing game is something that we're still figuring out, and how to get these parts together.
And the most important statistic, again, Green Bay walking away from the game with a win, 24-19, the final score. We didn't really talk about it, but that 5-point win comes about from a missed extra point, and then the Rams trying to make up for it later on a 2-point conversion and not hitting on that as well. So that really kind of throws them for a loop. It changes the way that they play the game. But like we said, I think that Green Bay in all facets really was able to, late in the game, stay in control and walk away with that win.
The other thing that happened, though, is the Rams twice were in field goal range, and the Packers defense moved them out of field goal range. So take those 6 points off the board, and that's the difference between losing 25-24 and winning 24-19.
And even still a chance down the stretch to get that touchdown in there. And yeah, just hoping that our defense does something, and please get a play. And yeah, we finally do get a decent play down in the stretch in that game. So again, a good road win, and it'll send Green Bay home here to play Arizona. Before we start talking about that game, let's kind of take a look around the league at some of these records, things that I guess we didn't expect. Minnesota Vikings, Jeff, now 5-0 after the big morning matchup with the Jets in London. How about those Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels with a 4-1 record? They are atop the NFC East. That's something that we didn't see happening. The NFC South really is anybody's ball game for the most part. The Falcons and the Buccaneers both at 3-2. And really the NFC West not panning out the way we expected either. Seahawks at 3-2, Cardinals, Niners at 2-3. In the AFC, the Chiefs, the other undefeated team, 5-0, get a big win. Texans, who we'll be seeing in a couple of weeks, at 4-1. The Ravens, kind of a weird 3-2. They seem like they should be better than 3-2. And the Steelers, same thing. Hey, Justin Fields has his team at 3-2 in Pittsburgh. And then there's the AFC East. My goodness, we have news in the AFC East. We know the Dolphins are probably going to fall apart now without Tua. The Patriots we didn't expect to do well. Buffalo just kind of cannot find their identity. And now the 2-3 New York Jets have fired their head coach, Robert Saleh, and all because of some kid playing quarterback out there that we all feel is trying to run things. Can we say that's the second head coach that Aaron Rodgers has had canned mid-season in his career? Is that something that he's going to put on his Hall of Fame stats when he gets there?
I mean, he had an assistant coach fired. I mean, we know he's the head coach, right?
Yeah, right. How long has it been since there's been a player coach in the league? Is Aaron bucking for that position? But their defensive coordinator in New York will take over, so we'll have to see how that goes. Either way, he's their problem now. I said that at the time of the trade. I am fine to not be dealing with the Aaron Rodgers drama show any longer. He served us well in Green Bay. Thank you, Aaron. But good luck with whatever it is you think is going on in New York from here on out.
The other Bears quarterback that's 3-2, however, is Caleb Williams. Are you a little bit concerned that Caleb Williams has actually had 2 good games in a row now?
They've had 2 wins in a row. he doesn't have the confidence that I think they expected him to have. But that's, to me, that's expected. There was too many lofty goals kind of put on him. And I've always been of the opinion that I don't think that a rookie quarterback is going to set the league on fire. And I always harken back to Aikman's rookie year and Peyton Manning's rookie year. They got the shit beat out of them. They knew they were going to take their lumps in those seasons, but it built them better as a quarterback, got them the game time experience. It helped them to develop and understand how the league plays. And ever since then, we haven't seen that with our rookie quarterbacks. There's this strange expectation that a kid is going to come out of college and dominate NFL defenses. And we just haven't seen anyone do that. And again, with Caleb Williams, he's had these high expectations. Is the team winning? Yes. Is he doing well here and there? Yeah. But like I said, I don't see the confidence in him in every play or a majority of plays that they expected him to have. But to me, that's where he should be.
Yeah, I agree with you, but Caleb Williams was 20 of 29 for 304, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 10.5 yards per attempt. That's a really good game. And his previous game was numbers that were relatively similar to that. So I think he is building in confidence, and hopefully that confidence becomes cockiness that is not associated with his yet understanding of NFL defenses. And that will be his downfall in some upcoming weeks.
It's the win now mentality of the NFL. 20, 30 years ago, Peyton Manning's, the John Elways, they would come in, they were drafted as franchise quarterbacks, but the public and the franchise was willing to wait. And the Bears quarterbacks have sucked for so long. They're looking for a win now. They have to have the win now. And did he check a lot of the boxes to win now? I guess. So the fact that he's having this expected success, or at least it's a really small sample size. It's 2 games.
And the last game was against the Panthers as well. Let's be clear.
Yeah, I mean, this is not so. Let's temper the enthusiasm here. And the Bears, we expect them to find a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, much like the Vikings have a propensity to do. So it's just
they just aren't doing that this year, though, Jeff. What's going on?
Well, the meme, if you have not seen it, going back to 2016, when the Vikings also started out 5-0, finished 8-8 and missed the playoffs. So there's a lot of that going around already. So it's not, again, these are Vikings fans. The expectations have to be tempered because they, again, find a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. It's only through 5 games. Let's see how things play out.
Taking a look at the Chicago schedule, though, too, they have the Jaguars coming up on Sunday night. Then they get their bye week. Then you got to have a really interesting matchup in week 8 with the Washington Commanders. So again, you got Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels going up against each other. That's a noon game. That's the same thing that I don't understand, like the Packers-Texans game being a noon game. So now the Bears-Commanders, your 1 and 2 quarterbacks in the draft being a noon game as well.
To be fair, most people expected that both of those teams were going to suck. So
right.
Yes.
We're not at flex scheduling yet. So I would call that intelligent scheduling that built on what expectations were.
I really expect the Bears to be on a high, though, after that. Then they got the Cardinals and the Patriots. I think the Bears can do really well before they come into their Week 11 matchup.
Really, John?
Hosting the Packers.
John, I will note, I actually picked the Bears to make the playoffs with an 8-9 record, and
wow,
that is looking reasonable at this point.
Yeah. Well, I already blew my pick on Minnesota, who I said would have 4 wins. So what the hell do I know, right? And the Arizona Cardinals are coming to Green Bay in week 6, a game that is not going to set any records for temperature in the game. We know that the hottest game, the Packers played 102 degrees in Arizona. But of the 76 times that these two teams have matched up, Green Bay has won 46 of those games. Green Bay did win in Arizona in 2021, but the last time the Packers beat the Cardinals in Green Bay was November 4th of 2012. Packers took a 31-17 victory in that matchup. So it's been 12 years since a Packer victory over Arizona in Green Bay.
But the best Packers game against the Cardinals, and also my first playoffs game ever, was in the 1982 season. Strike year, Packers 5-3-1, go to the playoffs. First time in our lives the Packers go to the playoffs. They're playing at home against the St. Louis Cardinals at Lambeau Field, and the Packers win 41-16, with Lynn Dickey having a perfect type of Lynn Dickey day. 17 of 23, 260 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns to Jefferson, 1 touchdown to Lofton, Eddie Lee Ivory with 2 touchdowns on the ground, Jan Stenerud with some field goals. It was as I remember, just an absolutely glorious day to be a Packers fan after all of these years of losing, to be in the stands for a Packers playoffs victory. Unbelievable.
So the Packers and Cardinals have faced off in two other playoff games. And these two playoff games, unfortunately, did not favor the Packers. They were very entertaining games, certainly. Our first taste of Aaron Rodgers playoff, the 51-45 loss in the desert in 2009 for that playoff game. And then there was the Beef Swellington playoff game, say, with Larry Fitzgerald running down the center of the field in a 2015 playoff loss.
Both of those overtime losses that just sort of adds to the pain of the situation. But let's bring ourselves back to 2024. And what are we facing in this Arizona Cardinals team? So it's a 2-3 team, but it's a team that's had a weird series of victories and losses. So they played tight against the Bills and the Lions with one score losses them. They beat San Francisco actually last week, although they also got annihilated by the Commanders. And you look at the overall numbers for these two teams, I would say if this were on a neutral stadium, this would be a Packers advantage. Because it's Lambeau Field, there's a real advantage. So looking at DVOA, the Packers are 11th overall, Arizona 21st. The Packers offense 4th overall, the Arizona defense 26th overall in DVOA. So we've got a big advantage on our offense against their defense. Our defense and their offense are both basically middling. And unfortunately, our special teams DVOA is 28th to Arizona's 16th. So as usual, we'll be at a disadvantage for the special teams. But overall, both teams are strong on offense with the running game, and Packers are 3rd, the Cardinals are 4th. Both of them basically middling all the way across the board as far as their defenses are concerned. But Arizona's running game is 28th in the NFL in yards allowed per game. So I think this is another situation where we should expect our running game to be dominant, and then we'll use the passing game in order to play off of that running game, or running to play off the passing game. But we should have great opportunities with running, and that should give us opportunities throwing the ball.
And we could even take the section of the playbook that was specific for Malik Willis in Tennessee, and let's implement that in this game because the running game can be so strong in this matchup. Hey, I like a commitment to the run as much as the next guy, and if Green Bay can keep the ball on the ground on a nice day in Lambeau Field, I am all for it.
I just want to see all phases work together in a game. We've seen pieces and parts, good defense, lots of turnovers. We've seen that, but just the defense again not getting off the field last week. So just if we can put one of these games together, 3 quarters, almost 4 quarters, I want to see more than a half of good football from one or both of the sides of the ball. This rivalry goes back actually to 1921. The first game played November 20th of 1921 with the Cardinals and the Packers. So
Chicago Cardinals at that point.
Cardinals.
Indeed. But they're at Lambeau. It's October afternoon. I'm sure the crowd will be happy to see the Packers back again at home. And that's, again, where we're hoping for that edge, that get the players excited. And Jordan Love, as we mentioned, his knee injury seems to be really past him now. And just finding that offense of consistency. Big plays are great if they utilize the running game, utilize great time of possession, keep the defense off the field. I think that this can really be a signature game on week 6 and a statement game.
And we have to remember that we have to put our picks in on the podcast so that our fans remember who we are taking in this one. I'm taking Green Bay this week with a victory at home over those Arizona Cardinals.
I think this is a situation where the Packers are going to come together. And yes, I see it as a victory over the Cardinals as well.
Victory for me as well.
Looking at a great day Sunday weather-wise. Tailgating will be happening as usual. The parking lots open up at 8 a.m., so looking forward to have another great party in Lot 1. What I will say, though, is if you're thinking about going to a Packer game and you're not sure which one to go to, Neil, I know you can help me out on the secondary market prices, but I've been watching this. The ticket prices for this Arizona Cardinals game have been hovering right around face value, which tells me that even the possibility that closer to game day, those prices are going to drop. Whereas next week's game against Houston, Neil, those have been twice face value, and we're not going to see any discount tickets against Houston, are we?
No, and I've seen the exact same thing. And we actually have all 6 of our tickets covered for Arizona. But looking at the prices for the Texans, yeah, we're looking at something that's about $100 above face value currently on the secondary market. So, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of excitement in seeing Stroud versus Love. But if you want to just see the Packers play and see the Packers playing a great game, this Sunday against Arizona is a great opportunity.
Yep, and we've been talking to some people online coming into Green Bay for their first time. So have a great day in Green Bay. Get there early. Make your way around to the adult trick-or-treating. That is the tailgate parties in the parking lots in and around Lambeau Field. And like I said, stop by Lot 1 for the shot ski, and some Grandma Lambeau's apple pie will be there ready to go at 8 a.m. With that, gentlemen, your final thoughts.
The biggest problem for our game against the Los Angeles Rams was this lack of consistency. And you can describe it by the number of 3-and-outs. We can describe it by being 1 for 8 on third down conversions, but we didn't get all of the pieces coming together. This offense is still finding itself, partly because it was missing pieces, partly because Jordan Love is still getting into his groove. I think that this is the week that we're going to see our offense look like we expected the Packers offense to be. And hopefully we're going to see the same thing with our defense. We're not going to see these consistent long drives by the opposing team. We're going to see a number of shorter drives. We're going to see greater number of stops, not just through turnovers, but also just through forcing them to punt the ball. When they have a 3rd and 15, they're not going to convert that 3rd and 15. We're going to stop them and get the ball back that way. I think that seeing this team come together is one of the exciting parts of the season. I think the home cooking of this week is going to give us the opportunity to have all of those parts come together. Go Pack, go.
So this is a matchup of 2 of the top 3 teams in terms of explosive play rates. The Packers come in at number 2 with 13% of their offensive plays being explosive plays. Arizona's right behind them at 12.4%. So what can we expect? Probably a lot of offense. And it's in Green Bay. It's a fall afternoon. There might be a little chill in the air, although probably still warm. There'll probably be a lot of warmth in the stands with the tailgating, right, John? But what we'll
be feeling good on Sunday, yeah.
Yes. What we really need here is the defense. They've been finding themselves as well. Will McKinney get his 6th interception in a row? I certainly hope so. But more importantly, will some of the draft choices from this class be played more and, based on what we've seen, really start to step up? It's really, really looking promising for some of these young players. And hopefully, as they get more experience and more playing time, which we're starting to see, they will really start to make an impact. And hopefully the Cardinals will get shut down here. The Packers offense will find themselves, and it will be really an offensive and defensive feast for this game. Go Pack, go.
Jeff, what you're saying is that you think it might be 41-16 Packers over the Cardinals again, just like the 82 playoffs game.
That's exactly what I'm saying, Neil. Thank you.
But even to expand on, Jeff, what you're saying there, Green Bay, this offense, in DVOA is 4th right now in the league. We're not worried about the Packer offense. I think that LaFleur calls a great game. We know we have a great quarterback. We know that the tools are there. The defense, though, is at 17th in DVOA, and that's middle of the pack. And this is a game where we need them to rise. We need them to start surging as a defense. We don't need this defense to shit the bed this week against the Arizona Cardinals. And we certainly don't need anything that's going to rattle their confidence going against Houston the following week. So while the offense, I think, is going to take care of itself, I really, like you said, I agree with you. I really want to see this defense step up and just have a dominating day in Green Bay. All right, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe, leave a comment. You can find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat. That's all one word. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapple, Apple Podcasts. Did I say Snapple?
You did say Snapple.
Here we go. Start over.
I may keep that in.
Pretty good.
If you're watching,
just go from the Snapple. I'm gonna leave the Snapple in.
All right, here we go. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment, find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat, all one word. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and on Facebook at the GBC podcast Green Bay Chat. And please follow us on any and all of those social media platforms. And may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Right.